According to new reports, military personnel are seeking outside legal counsel in order to determine whether or not they will be liable for carrying out military orders. This, of course, coming at the time as Congresspeople like Elise Slotkin and Mark Kelly are speaking directly to members of the military, telling them not to carry out an illegal order. Trump so upset by this that as president of the United States, he put out a tweet saying that those Congresspeople are treasonous and then reposted a post calling for them to be hanged. This unprecedented move. And what does the law say about the military personnel carrying it out? We certainly have precedent. As we know, carrying out an unlawful order is not a defense. Let's get into the law. But before we do so, let's take a look at what Carolyn Leavitt, the White House press secretary, had to say about this shocking, unprecedented statement by Trump. Take a listen.
Can I just follow up? The president and the vice president, for that matter, have accused the other side of encouraging political violence. Isn't that exactly what the president is doing when he says that members of Congress should be killed?
Why aren't you talking about what these members of Congress are doing to encourage and incite violence? They are literally saying to 1.3 million active duty service members not to defy the chain of command, not to follow lawful orders.
Actually,
every single
can refuse an illegal order, which is
they're suggesting, Nancy, that the president has given illegal orders, which he has not. Every single order that is given to this United States military by this commander in chief and through this chain of command, through the Secretary of War, is lawful. And the courts have proven that. This administration has an unparalleled record at the Supreme Court because we are following the laws. We don't defy court orders. We do things by the books. And to suggest and encourage that active duty service members defy the chain of command is a very dangerous thing for sitting members of Congress to do. And they should be held accountable. And that's what the president wants to see.
Carolyn Leavitt, of course, is continuing to defend the indefensible, unwilling to come out against such a horrible statement by Trump. But the fact is also these Congresspeople are the only ones who care about the military personnel, because them carrying out an illegal order will result in their own criminal or civil liability. It is not a defense. Following an order is not a defense. This is why, according to the nonprofit group, the Orders Project, they have had an increased number of calls from members of the military. They are concerned about the strikes being carried out in the Caribbean. They are concerned about their deployment to American cities. They are concerned about their cooperation with what was happening in Gaza. Because, of course, the International Criminal Court has opened up an inquiry into whether or not it's a genocide, and the United States may be liable for supplying weapons and perhaps military personnel there as well. In terms of the strikes, according to the Orders Project representative, he said that the calls they are actually getting are from staff officers, not the people actually carrying out the operation. The staff officers are concerned because they have essentially given advice against carrying out the strikes and have been convinced or tried to be convinced, that part is a little unclear and perhaps it depends on the officer, to change their opinion about the military strike, showing that there is high level, perhaps even mid-level at this point, well beyond Trump and Hegseth, but above the everyday soldier, where there is this tension and this acknowledgement that what they are doing is most likely illegal. Take a listen to what the Orders Project representative had to say.
As for the Orders Project, we have tended to receive most of our calls from military officers rather than lower-ranking enlisted members.
And tell me about that. That sounds like it surprises you, does it?
Yes, and I don't think that's because there's any sort of difference in the seriousness which all military members take their jobs. I do think, though, that lower enlisted members are, if they are told to do something, then they are going to trust that the correct staff processes and command approvals have happened for that to go through. And so, they're not picking up the phones to call. However, Some of the military staff officers, on the other hand, they are actually involved in the implementation and planning of these missions. And so when they are able to, I think, maybe get some insight into that sometimes they're may be asked to do things that they don't think are correct, or that are at least maybe boundary pushing and are different than how they've done things in the past.
It is, of course, not surprising that members of the military are concerned about whether or not this is illegal. We've already had France come out and say this is a violation of international law. The UK stopping to share certain information because they're concerned with what we're doing with it. Certainly the international community and even our allies think that this is a violation of international law. But what about domestic law? As we know, the DOJ issued that opinion back in the summer, trying to give legal cover, trying to say that somehow this is not an illegal order. But how much sway does that actually have? Well, we don't have to look that far. We know what happened with the military personnel who carried out the torture involving Iraq and specifically Abu Ghraib. About 100 American personnel were investigated or charged with carrying out some sort of abuse on detainees. Interestingly enough, they were not charged in a criminal civilian court that the DOJ actually has jurisdiction over. They were all court-martialed. They were all tried in a military court, the United States military court, not an international one. And the fact is the men and the women who were charged and used as a defense that they were carrying out an order were not able to use that because they found that, of course, as we know and we have known for years, that carrying out an illegal order is not a defense. This is what the Congress people are trying to remind the everyday people. And the very important point to note about those 100 people who were investigated, they were all everyday soldiers. They were not high up in the chain of command. At the end of the day, the people carrying out the orders were the ones who were tried in that U.S. court-martial. And the DOJ memo was not allowed in as a defense because what they did violated their own Army handbook. So the DOJ can say as much as they want. It was a nonsensical argument to begin with. I've done a video on this. The fact is they're trying to say that somehow the drug cartels are doing this not for business, but to have violence in the United States. But this is not binding. The Army, the Marines, the Navy, they all have their own handbooks about how to carry out war and whether or not to kill somebody is all within their handbooks. And that has precedent over whatever the DOJ says. That whatever the DOJ says is not even exactly binding in federal criminal court. The DOJ might use that as a way of not prosecuting people in the federal court because a prior DOJ issued an opinion. It's more of a tradition. It's not necessarily a law, but it's certainly not binding in a military court. So those personnel, those military personnel should get a heads up by Congresspeople if they are not aware of the law. Now that the holidays are here, we're all going to be spending more time cooking and cleaning, and that's where Hexclad comes in. Hexclad has become by far my favorite pans, not just for me, but my whole family, because they're super easy to clean. They're non-stick, but also non-toxic. And you don't scrape them like you would with typical non-stick pans. And they also cook and sear beautifully. They're a reason why they are Gordon Ramsay approved. And right now, they are also perfect for gifting because they're the kind of gifts that will get used and they will last. They have a 6-piece that's perfect for anyone who wants the essentials covered, while the 12-piece unlocks endless holiday meals and beyond. I wish I had done a set instead of buying piece after piece because I like them so much. So Hexclad truly checks every single box when it comes to picking your cookware. They are metal utensils safe, dishwasher safe, toxin free, and oven safe up to 500 degrees. They're induction ready and even have a stay cool handle so you can saute with ease. And right now, for a limited time, Hexclad is having a massive Black Friday sale. Head to HEXCLAD.com to get up to 52% off. This is by far the biggest discount they've given all year. That's hexclad.com for up to 52% off. After you purchase, they will ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them our show sent you. Take a listen what this Orders Project representative also had to say about the DOJ trying to say that somehow these military personnel have immunity. Take a listen.
And Colonel, the reporting we mentioned earlier that says there's a DOJ memo that basically says soldiers would be immune from prosecution if involved in these boat strikes. How do you react to that?
The conference of immunity does raise some important questions. And my first reaction is anybody who relies on that, the fact that DOJ has signed a memo saying there's blanket immunity, is making a mistake to fully rely upon this. Now, it does mean something, but there are a number of questions. One is, why is this being offered? I mean, we don't normally immunize people. And so the question is, what is it that you're asking me to do? What sort of conduct will confer this immunity? Second, who is the person who is giving this immunity? Do they have the proper power to do so? For example, if a service member relies on DOJ immunity, that doesn't mean that a state may not prosecute them for any crimes they commit, or if they travel to another country. If there are allegations that they have committed atrocity crimes, then other countries could invoke their own universal jurisdiction and put them before the national courts of another country.
All right, that is retired Lieutenant Colonel Frank Rosenblatt joining us tonight. Colonel, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Lieutenant Colonel Frank Rosenblatt said that in a very nuanced way. But the short answer is Pam Bondi cannot give immunity. She can't give immunity in the federal criminal system. She certainly can't give immunity in the military court system, and definitely not in the international court system. Anything to say otherwise is basically disingenuous and does a disservice to the men and women in uniform, which is why the congresspeople who spoke to them were actually being brave and courageous and trying to help them out. If you have not yet subscribed to the Mistrial podcast, be sure to do so. We're covering lots of these really important topics, and check out our sponsors in the link below because they never censor what I say, and what we have to say these days is very important for democracy and for all of us who care about the rule of law.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.